Last week, we got stuck on a case where a law firm's client missed a crucial court appearance because their transport partner was late by just 15 minutes. That single delay cost them not only the case, but also a major client relationship. It's a sharp reminder. In business transport, reliability isn't just a nice-to-have, it's the backbone of professional trust.
That's a real-world example, and the numbers back it up. According to a 2023 survey by the Corporate Mobility Association, 68% of law and real estate firms reported losing business due to transport delays in the past year. The margin for error is shrinking as client expectations rise.
But is it always fair to put that much pressure on transport providers? What if there's a citywide disruption or something outside their control? I wonder if businesses sometimes expect absolute perfection, which might not be realistic.
Here's the takeaway. While perfection isn't possible, precision and contingency planning are now baseline expectations. Clients don't just want to arrive, they want to arrive on time, every time, and in a way that reflects their own brand standards.
Only after 2 iterations did our agency realize that switching to a premium transport partner actually improved our client retention rate. The feedback was immediate, clients felt valued, and our reputation for professionalism grew.
There's also a competitive angle. In sectors like real estate, 82% of surveyed clients said they would switch agencies if they experienced unreliable transport more than once. That's a huge incentive for firms to invest in better logistics.
Still, I'd argue that overpromising can backfire. If a company guarantees absolute punctuality but can't deliver, the reputational damage might be worse than being upfront about possible delays.
That's why transparency and proactive communication are just as critical as the transport itself. In modern business, reliability and precision aren't just operational. They're strategic assets that can make or break client trust. Only after 2 iterations, we realized that what clients valued most wasn't just on-time delivery. It was the sense of assurance they got from proactive updates and transparent communication.
That's reflected in their client retention rate, which is reportedly above 90%. For logistics, where switching costs are low, that's a significant benchmark.
But does that retention really come from operational excellence? Or is it more about the relationships? If a competitor offered the same tracking tech, would clients stay loyal?
From what I've seen, legal and real estate professionals often have zero margin for error. Coastrategic's willingness to adapt to last-minute changes seems to be a differentiator, especially when documents or keys need to move fast.
Here's the takeaway. Being a partner means anticipating needs before they're voiced. That's where trust is built, when clients feel you're already thinking 2 steps ahead.
And there's a measurable impact. Missed deliveries can cost a law firm thousands in penalties or lost deals. Coastrategic's record of less than 1% delivery exceptions directly protects their clients' bottom line.
Still, I wonder if that's sustainable as they scale. Does the veteran-led culture actually translate into consistent execution, or is it just a branding angle?
Veteran values like discipline and accountability aren't just slogans. They show up in how the team handles pressure. I've heard stories of drivers going the extra mile, literally, to meet a client's deadline.
So, the question becomes, is Coastrategic raising the bar for the industry, or are they simply meeting a standard that should already exist? Either way, their approach is forcing others to rethink what partnership really means in logistics. Only after 2 iterations we realized that partnering with both major carriers and regional providers actually reduced our delivery exceptions by nearly 18%. That's a significant shift in the last-mile equation.
That matches what we've seen in industry data. Last-mile costs can account for over 50% of total shipping expenses. And delays spike when relying on a single carrier. Diversifying partnerships seems to directly impact both speed and reliability.
But if that's the case, why do so many businesses still struggle with missed deliveries or damaged packages? Is it just about who you partner with, or is there something else at play in the last mile?
From my perspective, it's not just about the carrier. The planning and tech integration matter just as much. If your tracking system doesn't sync in real time with your partners, you're basically flying blind once the package leaves your facility.
Here's the takeaway. The real differentiator is how you orchestrate those partnerships. For example, Coastrategic uses dynamic routing to assign packages to the fastest available carrier, which shaved an average of 1.2 days off delivery times last quarter.
And that speed translates directly to customer satisfaction scores. According to a recent survey, 74% of customers say on-time delivery is the #1 factor in their repeat purchase decisions.
If that's true, what's the risk of relying too heavily on a giant like Amazon versus a nimble regional provider? Couldn't a single disruption throw off the whole system?
Absolutely, and that's why redundancy is key. Regional carriers can fill gaps when national networks hit capacity or face weather issues. It's about building resilience, not just speed.
Only after 2 iterations, we realized that featuring client brands in podcast interviews led to a measurable uptick in their inbound inquiries, sometimes as much as 18% within a month. That's a signal that logistics firms can do more than just move goods. They can move narratives.
That's interesting. But can you explain how these brand features actually translate into long-term business growth? Is it just a spike in attention? Or do companies see sustained benefits from being part of a logistics-driven media platform?
There's some precedent. Branded podcasts have shown up to 89% higher recall rates compared to traditional ads, according to Nielsen. When a logistics company like Coastrategic curates the content, it's not just about reach, it's about trust. Their operational reputation lends credibility to the brands they spotlight.
But what if the podcast audience doesn't align with the client's target market? Isn't there a risk that the message gets diluted? Or worse, ignored? I'd argue that without careful audience analysis, these partnerships could backfire.
Here's the takeaway. The most effective partnerships happen when the podcast content is tailored to both the logistics audience and the featured brand's core values. That's where targeted ad reads and authentic storytelling come into play. Otherwise, you're right, the impact fizzles.
And there's a best practice emerging. Brands that co-create segments with the logistics team rather than just buying ad space see higher engagement rates. It's the difference between being talked about and being part of the conversation.
Another factor is measurement. Tracking listener conversion rates, social shares, and even qualitative feedback helps refine the approach. Coastrategic's willingness to share these metrics with clients sets them apart in a space where transparency isn't always the norm.
Still, I'd caution that over-commercialization could erode listener trust. If every episode feels like a sales pitch, the audience tunes out. The balance between content and promotion is delicate, and it's easy to tip the scales the wrong way.
Only after 2 iterations, we realized that our hiring process was unconsciously favoring candidates with military backgrounds. That's when we started asking, how do we ensure our values translate for everyone, not just veterans?
That's a real challenge. If you look at retention rates, veteran-led companies in logistics often outperform the industry average by about 12%. But the real differentiator is how those values, discipline, accountability are operationalized, not just talked about.
But is there a risk that military discipline could feel rigid or even alienating to civilian hires? If someone's never worked in that kind of environment, how do you prevent culture shock or burnout?
I've seen that play out. When I joined, the onboarding included a mentorship program pairing veterans with non-veterans. That helped bridge the gap, but it also made clear that the mission-driven mindset isn't about hierarchy, it's about shared responsibility.
And clients notice. One of our largest accounts cited our reliability as the main reason for renewing their contract. They specifically mentioned our proactive communication and the sense that we own the mission. That's a direct result of those core values.
Still, if the focus is always on mission and discipline, is there room for flexibility or creative problem solving? Could that be a blind spot?
Here's the takeaway. Embedding military values doesn't mean replicating the military. It means elevating standards, reliability, integrity, service while adapting to the realities of commercial logistics. That's how you build trust, both inside the company and with every client you serve.